Bismillah, 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 Allah.
Brothers and sisters, this summer has been a revolutionary summer. So let's have a look at some of the images from the Arab Spring.
We want to choose our president because we want to take this country into the future.
We shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. Though I join hands so often with students and others behind jail bars singing, we shall overcome. Sometimes we've had tears in our eyes when we joined together to sing it, but we've still decided to sing it. We shall overcome. No, before this victory's won, some will have to get thrown in jail some more, but we shall overcome. Don't worry about us. Before the victory's won, some of us will lose jobs, but we shall overcome. Before the victory's won, even some will have to face physical death. Physical death is the price that some must pay. To free their children from a permanent psychological death, then nothing shall be more redemptive. We shall overcome. Before the victory's won, some will be misunderstood and called bad names and dismissed as rabble-rousers and agitators, but we shall overcome. And I'll tell you why. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward God. No lie can live forever. True success will rise again. You shall reap such a soul. We shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome.
That's what they've been waiting for. Hosni Mubarak has gone.
Brothers and sisters, I don't know about you, but I think we should all be upstanding for the millions. I think we've made a massive change, and really, all I can say. Allahu Akbar! What can you say? The actions of one man or one woman somewhere in one country could change the lives of millions of people after so many decades. Subhanallah. How do we analyze the revolution, the spring that has just gone by? It's a real pleasure for Living Islam to actually welcome our next speaker to give us an insight in what the revolution actually means. She's a writer and a researcher who's completed a master's in political science at the University of Cairo before embarking on the doctorate in political theory. She lectures at the Department of Political Science in Cairo and coordinator of the Civil Society program. She's also running a program for research and training in the City Center for Political Research and Studies. From 1995 to 1998, she was an associate researcher at the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies and a visiting researcher at the University of Westminster for the study of democracy. To help us understand the Arab Spring and the lessons from the revolution, please welcome to Living Islam, Dr. Heba Ezzat.
Assalamu alaikum. It is indeed my pleasure to be here with you today, coming from Cairo and leaving Tahrir Square behind to a very big demonstration today where the Salafis and the Ikhwan decided to go to the square after it has been actually a space for demonstration for different groups and different parties. We're trying to bring people together now, and of course, as usual, people wonder who is on the square. Today, it's everybody, and even the Islamic parties and forces decided to go on the square. Some people fear that they are showing their power, and others have been trying to consider this to be just a mosaic of who has been participating in the revolution. I will not give a classic or traditional lecture about the factors, the scenarios, the details of what happened in the Arab world, but I think that we all witnessed what happened in Tunisia, and Egyptian people have been trying to change the system for some while. Demonstrations have been on the streets for more than a decade, and not only in Cairo and in big squares, but also in different cities, working on that change. Workers, peasants, students, political parties, political groups have been trying to do that across the Arab world. Some managed to do that in the past few months, and some are still trying and struggling. And there are definitely forces, ruling forces in the Arab world that do not wish to see the revolutions succeeding, so that they wouldn't give an example. So we are going through some hard time. It's not a spring in the sense of blooming flowers, but it's also a challenge. I think that I will talk about my own personal experience with revolution, because I happen to live on Tahrir Square. So this is where I live, and this is where I have been brought up. And the square for me represents a very significant symbolization of the different faces of Egypt, because for those who did not visit Cairo, Tahrir Square has the Egyptian Museum, which represents the old pharaonic civilization. It has the American University in Cairo, which is somehow representing the Western influence on the culture, on politics. It has the biggest administrative building where all the bureaucracy offices are, most of them in Cairo, so the central ones. So it represents the Egyptian state and its bureaucracy. It has the very famous mosque of Omar Makram, so it represents also the call for prayer 5 times a day and the Islamic civilization. And downtown Cairo represents the last 200 years of architecture, which has been attempting to catch up with modernity, but at the same time, it leads to the old Cairo of Islamic monuments and Islamic mosques. So the square is very significant in the Egyptian urban space. And I think that the different spheres and the different locales that witnessed revolution tried to sort of take the square as an icon in the Egyptian case. We also looked very much with pride to the Tunisian case that time-wise came before the Egyptian case, and we have been very much following what is going on. And I've been with a Tunisian friend a few days ago, and we have been comparing notes, and there are so many similarities, though the Tunisian case is a bit different from the Egyptian one because of the development of civil society, the role of labor movements, and the different syndicates, etc., and the degree of Islamization of the public sphere in Egypt is bigger. What happened actually is that, to put it all in a nutshell, people decided that they will not take it anymore. And at a specific point, the Egyptian masses decided they want to have change in their day-to-day life. They were coping with a regime that was authoritarian and very brutal as well. The records of the Egyptian and Tunisian examples in human rights violations are horrific. And it needed only the Bouazizi in Tunisia, who burnt himself in the public space, to sort of protest the humiliation of his dignity as a human being. And also it took a few bullets from the Ministry of Interior facing the civilian demonstrators to set the people's will free in order to change the situation. The biggest lesson that I think that we can learn from the Arab Spring and from the different revolutions in different Arab countries is that people matter. When people decide that they will not take it anymore, people matter. That when people go to the street in masses, even if they are facing bullets and they are facing tanks, they do matter and they do change the balance and they make a difference. The second lesson is that we were talking about women's emancipation and women's rights this morning in one of the sessions, and I think that you saw on the screen the participation of women on the streets. We saw it in the case of Tunisia, we saw it in Egypt, we saw it also in Yemen, interestingly, to see these women who are covering their faces coming to the streets and protesting and demonstrating and staying overnight and helping others to keep on the struggle. So it's not only about talking about women's rights and equality, it's about how women act in such transitional periods in order to establish their own legitimacy as citizens and as sisters in the political and economic and social realm.